Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Gateway Motorsports Park, or Worldwide Technology Raceway, a brand new venue for the Cup Series. They made their inaugural trip to the track this weekend. For the first time, the Cup Series arrives at the St. Louis Sports Market and put on quite a show with some fun restarts, some drama, and a fun finish between two of NASCAR's talented drivers that are also very polarizing. Let's talk about the first Cup event at Gateway. Number 1, Joey Logano picks up his second win of the 2022 season, winning yesterday's inaugural Enjoy Illinois 300 at Worldwide Technology Raceway, or Gateway Motorsports Park, whatever you want to call it, in a fierce battle at the end with Kyle Busch, who was dominating for most of the race. Logano passed Kyle Busch off of turn 4, coming to the white flag, and stole the win and beat Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, and Eric Ambroil. Joey Logano ran top 10 pretty much majority of the race, and he was fast the entire weekend. His 22 car was the fastest in the practice session. He was fastest in his qualifying group that got him into the final round of qualifying. However, he had a slip up in qualifying that just prevented him from making a run at the pole. He started 7th, and he pretty much stayed top 10 again the majority of the race. But by the time the track cooled down and we got closer to the end of the race and he got track position, Logano put himself in a position and was starting to run down Kyle Busch in some of those closing laps, including one of the restarts. Logano passed Kyle Busch on the bottom of the racetrack and took advantage of it off of turn 2 and cleared Kyle. Well, then we had another restart, and Kyle Busch this time on the outside got the best of Joey Logano when Logano restarted on the bottom. And it looked like at that point Kyle Busch was going to drive away, although Logano kept pressuring him. Then we had a late race caution for Kevin Harvick crashing after he broke a brake rotor, and that set up a thrilling overtime finish. With Kyle Busch and Logano, they got a nice restart going off into turn 1. Logano side by side with Kyle Busch. It stayed relatively close. And then when we got to 3 and 4, Kyle Busch went a little bit high, but didn't go completely high to send him completely backwards a couple of positions, but however, it prevented him from holding the lead off of 4 and gave Logano the advantage. And Logano was able to pull away with it and get his second win of the season. This is the third time in the previous year and a half or so, that Logano's won inaugural events, as the Bristol Dirt Race, the LA Coliseum Busch Clash, and now Gateway Motorsports Park. At this time, Joey Logano had a nice battle for the win, and he did it cleanly, which a lot of people are going to be saying after the first one he had this year at Darlington was bumping William Byron out of the way, which a lot of people thought was dirty, but Logano's been known for being an aggressive driver. This time, it was an aggressive pass, but it was a clean pass, and he got the best of Kyle Busch on that last corner coming to the white flag. So kudos to the 22 team in Logano for that pass, and now they are the fourth multi-time winner this season in 2022. That's pretty cool for the 22 team, and they'll hopefully get some momentum going, because ever since the Darlington win, they haven't had a good string of results. They didn't run well at Kansas. They struggled for the most part in the All-Star races by getting a top 5 late. Now, they ran up at the front a lot of the Coca-Cola 600, but they didn't get the finish at the end. They were part of that big crash on the first overtime. But regardless, the 22 team had speed in that race. Yesterday, they had a solid car all day long, solid car the entire weekend, and it showed up in the end as they emerged victorious. So big congrats to Joey Logano and Paul Wolfe in the 22 team. Number 2, Kyle Busch, second place. You know he hates those words. Kyle Busch was dominant for the majority of the race. Now, there were multiple different leaders of the race, but Kyle Busch was credited for leading the most laps at 66 laps, and it looked like when he passed Logano in those late race restarts, he was going to pull away with the win and get his second win of the season, which the other win he has was the Bristol Dirt Race. But that late race caution brought Logano and the rest of the pack back to Kyle Busch. And on that restart, Kyle Busch was lined up on the outside, which he chose to take with the choose rule. And of course, you're the leader. You can choose whatever way you want to restart in, whether it's the bottom or the high groove. He chose the top, and brother Kurt was right behind him on the top side. I felt like if Kurt could get a good launch at Busch Kyle, they're going to be gone, and Logano's not going to be able to get Kyle Busch. But Kurt did not get a good launch, and that prevented him and Kyle getting the jump on the Penske guys on the inside. And that's why Kyle Busch was able to hold the lead, but then he ran a little higher groove in 3 and 4, which cost him some momentum and got the 22 the momentum to take the lead from Kyle Busch. And Busch was not happy with finishing second. Obviously, he doesn't like finishing second, and plus, he doesn't like finishing second to Joey Logano because he's had some things to say about him in the past. You know, they're both very aggressive drivers, for one thing. And yes, they're both polarizing figures, but they're both talented and they both win races. I mean, Kyle Busch wanted to be the first driver, obviously, to win the first Cup race at Gateway. Everyone wanted to be Joey Logano. So, at the end of the day, you got to be at least proud of what he was able to pull as far as being dominant up front in the majority of the race and running towards his Toyota counterparts and teammates and the Fords. It was mostly, again, a battle of the Fords and Toyotas, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Kyle Busch obviously not happy with finishing second, but nonetheless, he had a solid day yesterday. Number 3, Ross Chastain made enemies with half the field basically yesterday. Ross Chastain's having a career year, but yesterday he pushed the limit as far as his aggression on the racetrack. In the early part of Stage 2, Ross Chastain was battling Denny Hamlin in turns 1 and 2 for, I think, a top 5 spot. And Chastain got a little deep into 1 and bumped the back of Denny Hamlin, sending Hamlin into the outside wall, breaking the right rear toe link. And Hamlin had to continue the rest of the race laps down. And when he fell laps down, he realized that his race was pretty much over, even though he was going to still run and just run the rest of the race. He decided to mess with Chastain because he was not happy with what Ross did to him. He was not happy whatsoever. He tried to wreck him, he tried to slow him down, and say, if Chastain gets in front of me and I'm at relatively high speed, I'm dumping him. That's what it looked like when he was doing that yesterday, but Chastain kept his cool around trying to race the 11 car and just got by. I mean, NASCAR probably would have done something if Denny Hamlin did something to Ross Chastain. They kept it going for the rest of the race. They probably would have parked the 11 car. But Chastain was not done with Denny Hamlin. On a restart, just not even a full lap into a restart after that caution for Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain getting together, Ross Chastain gets into the back of Chase Elliott off of turn number 4 and sends the 9 car spinning, collecting Bubba Wallace and a couple others. Not a lot of damage to all those guys. They kept going. Elliott was not happy with Ross Chastain on the restart. Right after that, when they all restarted the rear, Elliott let Chastain know how unhappy he was and bumped him out of the way. And then Hamlin doored Chastain. But Chastain was still able to continue regardless of that. But he made enemies with the 9 and the 11 car yesterday. I think Elliott made his point. Unfortunately, he was never able to recover from that spin himself for 21st. Hamlin finished multiple laps down. Ross, however, was able to bounce back and get back a top 10 finish at the end of the day. In his post-race interview, he owed up to his actions and said, I completely screwed up today. I owe half the field an apology. Well, it was really the 9 and the 11 car he had a problem with, but it seemed like he kind of was racing around a lot of guys today, and they were kind of like, I don't know if I want to be around him after what he did to Chase and Denny. I want to be cautious. I'm going to watch how I raced him. But he owed up to his actions in his post-race interview, and he said, I owe half the field an apology, and any retaliation I get back in the near future, I deserve it. So he owed up to his actions, and he said he would talk to Elliott and Hamlin afterwards. But it was pretty big of Chastain. He made a man of himself to owe up to his actions and apologize for that. Unfortunately, sometimes words can't make everyone happy, So he's probably going to get retaliated in the near future. When will that happen? We don't know. But Denny Hamlin made it clear he was not really happy with Ross Chastain. He'd already dealt early in the race with Bubba getting spun by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Hamlin was not happy with Ross Chastain. He said, he's going to get his eventually. So there's a little bit of a feud beginning right now between the Chastain and Denny. I didn't really hear too much from Chase afterwards about what he had to say. I mean, I think when he just bumped the back of the 1 car, he pretty much said, hey, I didn't appreciate that. This is my retaliation for you. But he could retaliate. We don't know. But Ross owed up to his actions, and that's big of him. Unfortunately, he did get a little over his head yesterday, the way he drove. And he said, I got to stop making these mistakes if I want to be successful in the sport, which he's being successful this year with the 2 wins, but sometimes the over-aggressiveness could get the best of him. So at least he owed up to his actions, but there probably will be retaliation in the near future. Number 4. Toyotas and Fords dominated this weekend at Gateway Motorsports Park. There wasn't really a whole lot of the Chevys other than Ross Chastain's day. AJ Allmendinger, who never turned a lap because he was racing in Portland, where he won in the Xfinity race, he started at the rear and was able to get a top 10 out of the race yesterday. That's impressive. But the majority of the race, it was Toyotas, particularly obviously the Gibbs guys, Kurt Busch for 2311 Racing, and Penske and some of the Stewart-Haas guys, and Michael McDowell led a lot of laps yesterday, which is the most laps he's led in a single season his entire career. He had a good run yesterday, but fell back for a top 20 finish. Chase Briscoe was good in the early going before he kind of left for a tire, spun around. He kind of got back in the top 10 at one point, but then lost track position again, finished top 25. Ryan Blaney, who was leading the race at one point, he spun. He hit the outside wall with a left rear tire, but not a lot of damage. He was able to rebound and finish 4th. Martin Truex Jr., whose future's kind of up in the air right now, had a solid run yesterday, running up front in the later stage, the beginning of the final stage. It looked like he was going to break the winless streak and lock himself into the playoffs, but he lost his track position. He had to settle for a 7th place finish, but still a good result for him. Eric Ambroil was the best of the Storehouse class yesterday. He ran up front all day long. I don't think he ever left the top 15. He was strong, and he got a nice finish out of it with a nice 5th place run. His only trip to Gateway because he's retiring after this year. Austin Cindric led a couple laps. He was up front. He finished 11th, but nonetheless, that's a good result for him. Obviously, Joey and Kyle. Christopher Bell was up there. It was mostly Toyotas and Fords this weekend. Chevy's just kind of missed it. I mean, Eric Jones actually was up front at the end, and he got a top 10 finish. But for the most part, it was the Toyotas and the Fords, particularly Penske guys and some Storehouse guys, and all the Gibbs/2311 guys. So it was just a Ford Toyota weekend for those teams. And number 5, the first trip to Gateway, the racing product. It was very interesting. It was, I thought, a good first race for Gateway. The crowd, first of all, sold out. The crowd was into it. We were even filming fans' reactions every time they were on the television, like, what was going on the racetrack, particularly with Ross and Chase and Denny, and the battles for the lead that we had, the restarts. The restarts were unbelievable, with sometimes guys diving down the inside before they get ready to get to shift it down twice into turns 1 and 2. It was just unbelievable. They're 4 wide off of turn 2. I don't know how they don't wreck. It was just unbelievable racing on the restart. It was tough to pass, though. It was more of a track position racetrack because we've seen it this year at some of the flatter tracks like Phoenix and Martinsville. You have the track position, you're going to be up there all day long. And if you're stuck in the middle of the pack, it's tough to get back to the front unless if somehow things go your way and you're able to possibly make the most out of it. It was mostly a track position race, but nonetheless a good first event for the Cup Series at Gateway. The finish, obviously, at the end with Joey and Kyle was thrilling to watch, and I enjoyed it very much. I felt like Gateway had a good first event here, and they are coming back to the schedule in 2023 next year. Now, let's see how next year does, and will it carry over to being a future on the Cup schedule down the road for 2024 and beyond. Time will tell, but I felt like we had a good event yesterday, good racing at the end, fun restarts, the drama with some of those guys that were upset with each other with Chastain, and the fans. Great crowd on hand yesterday. It was just a good event overall. Also, the Fox broadcast was fun to have. Mike Joy, Clint Boyer, and Michael Waltrip was with him the whole race. And obviously, this kind of silliness on the track kind of fit Michael and Clint's broadcasting style, but Michael obviously was very serious at times. And for stage 2, we brought St. Louis, Missouri's own Kenny Wallace to join us. It was so fun to hear Kenny. Haven't seen him on television since he left FS1 in the middle of the 2010s. And, went off to retirement, obviously watched the Cardinals, spent time with his wife, Kim, and his girls. It was just good to hear Herman the German yesterday. Good to see old Kenny Wallace in the booth. It was good to hear those guys. It was a solid broadcast, I thought, for Fox at Gateway yesterday. So now we're off to wine country, Sonoma Raceway, the second road course race of the season and the final race of the year for NASCAR on Fox. Tony Stewart will be our guest analyst. How fitting is it that we start the season with Tony Stewart as our guest analyst with Mike Joy and Clint Boyer and finishes for the final race on Fox this year. It's going to be a fun event next weekend. Will Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Martin Truex Jr., the road course kings, show up and battle it out for the win next weekend? Or will Chastain make up for his mistakes this weekend and carry it over next week? Or will Joey Logano go back-to-back? We shall see what happens. It's going to be a fun race for Sonoma. I can't wait to see what happens out there in wine country. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like. Congrats to Joey Logano and the 22 team on their win at the first ever Cup event at Gateway. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful week. Let's go racing!